Ever feel like you're just drowning in information these days?
Yeah, know that feeling.
It'd be so overwhelming, right?
Totally.
We'll get ready to dive into a refreshing take on learning today. We're going way back, like ancient history back, to get some surprisingly relevant advice on how to deal with that whole information overload problem.
Ancient history, huh? Going for the classics today, are we?
You got it.
Yeah.
We're talking about Augustine of Hippo.
Augustine of Hippo. For learning advice.
I know, I know. Not exactly the first name that pops into your head, but trust me on this.
Okay, you've piqued my interest. What's the big idea here?
Well, it's all about cultivating what Augustine calls a healthy intellectual appetite. Not just cramming our brains with whatever we come across, but being more intentional, more discerning about what we choose to feed our minds.
Okay, I like where this is going. So, no pressure, Augustine, but lay it on us. What's the secret to this whole intellectual appetite thing?
Well, he talks of these two contrasting approaches to knowledge, curiositas and studiositas.
Ooh, Latin terms. Gotta love it when we get fancy. Break those down for me, huh?
So imagine curiositas as that almost frantic need to know everything about everything, like falling down a Wikipedia rabbit hole at 2 bro a.m. and not coming up for air until you've clicked through a dozen different links.
Well, yeah, I've been there, done that. Still have the browser tabs to prove it.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with a little curiosity, but Augustine says it can get out of hand. It can become this insatiable hunger that never really gets satisfied.
Okay, so if curiositas is like the junk food of learning, what's the healthy alternative? That's where studiositas comes in, right?
You got it. Studiositas is like less about gobbling up every last bit of information and more about, how does the author of this paper we're looking at put it? Oh, yeah. It's about participating in knowledge.
Participating in knowledge, that's interesting. What does that even mean?
Well, it's like instead of seeing knowledge as something you acquire or possess, you approach it as something you engage with, something you contribute to, and something you share with others.
Okay, so less like collecting stamps and more like, I don't know, joining a conversation.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, Augustine actually gives us a really vivid example of what this looks like in practice through the story of one of his students.
Oh, lay it on me. Who's the student and what are they learning?
Well, this student was a young poet named Licentius.
A poet, huh? Sounds intriguing already. Tell me more. So Licentius, right? This young poet guy, he's obviously talented, passionate about his art, but maybe a little, a little dramatic.
Yeah, I get it. All about the feels, right?
Exactly. So how does Augustine, wise teacher and all, handle this? Did he try to steer him away from poetry towards something a bit more practical?
Good question. You'd think, right?
Right.
But that's not Augustine's style at all.
Oh. So what's the plan then? How is he going to work with this poet guy?
Well, there's this great story where Licentius is working on this super intense love poem, like full-on tragedy, heartbreak, the works.
Oh, man. I can already picture it. Angsty poetry slams in the forum.
Right. So what does Augustine do? He tells him to take that same poem and turn it into a comedy.
Wait, seriously? That's his big teaching moment.
I know, right? It sounds a little out there. Turn the tear-jerker into a rom-com? I wouldn't have thought of that.
Right. So what's the reasoning there?
Well, Augustine, he was all about finding the joy in things, even in the midst of hardship. He believed that God, wouldn't want us to just dwell in misery and despair.
Interesting. So he saw this comedy thing as a kind of reflection of that, a reflection of God's hope.
Exactly. And by getting Licentius to find the comedy in his tragic poem, he was basically asking him to shift his whole perspective.
To look for the silver lining, the possibility of, redemption?
Yes. And this ties back into the whole studiositas thing we were talking about earlier.
Oh, right. Okay. I see where you're going with this. So how does finding humor in a sad poem, how does that connect to participating in knowledge?
Because it's about more than just, passively soaking up information, right? It's about actively engaging with ideas, playing with them, letting them shape how you see the world.
So it's not just about what you learn, but how you learn it, and how you then use what you've learned.
Exactly. And guess what happens next? Licentius has this incredible breakthrough.
No way. Really? What kind of breakthrough are we talking? Did he, become the most famous poet in Rome? Did he finally get over his heartbreak and find true love? Give me the details.
It's bigger than that even, Reed. He's up late one night working on his poem, and bam, it hits him.
Yeah, like a bolt out of the blue. But it wasn't just about poetry, not anymore. The paper describes it as this, almost mystical experience for him.
Mystical. Okay, now I'm really curious. What did he figure out?
Well, he suddenly sees the order of the universe, the interconnectedness of everything. It just clicks for him.
Wow, that's intense. So he has this massive epiphany thanks to Augustine's little homework assignment. What happens next? Does he run out into the street shouting, Eureka?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But Augustine, being Augustine, he knows how to handle a student on the verge of, well, maybe a bit of an ego trip.
Oh, for sure. That's prime I'm a genius territory right there.
Yeah.
So does Augustine try to, like, bring him back down to earth a little?
Exactly. Gently but firmly. He reminds Licentius that real wisdom, it isn't about possessing knowledge, but about recognizing where it all comes from,
Hmm.
about staying humble.
I love that. There's that idea of participating in knowledge again. Isn't there? Like, we're not conquerors of knowledge, but more like grateful recipients.
Right. It's like this gift we're given, this opportunity to learn and grow. And that's something we can easily forget even now with all the information at our fingertips.
So true. It's so easy to get caught up in the whole I need to know it all mentality. But what Augustine's saying is, it's not about how much you know, but how you approach learning itself.
100%. It's about cultivating that studiositas, that deep engagement with knowledge, that openness to being changed by what we learn.
And maybe a little bit of humor along the way doesn't hurt either.
A, never underestimate the power of a good laugh, especially when you're tackling the big questions.
Well said. It seems like we've learned a lot from Augustine today, even if it wasn't always about, the most practical stuff. More like a blueprint for a life of learning.
Totally. And the best part is it's a blueprint we can all use no matter what we're passionate about, no matter what we're trying to learn.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Augustine's world, I think the question we leave you with is this. What kind of intellectual appetite are you cultivating? Are you all about that curiositas, that endless pursuit of more, more, more? Or are you seeking out the deeper nourishment of studiositas, that joy of participating in knowledge, of sharing it with others, and letting it shape who you are?
It's a good question to think about. And with that, we'll leave you to ponder it. Until next time, happy learning, everyone.
Happy learning.